It's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's our goal. Hey, it's time for breaking bread with Papa. Hey, don't you know? Hey, it's also a show.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. I am Tom Papa. We've got a great one today with Gary Gulman. He's got a new book out called Misfit, Growing Up Awkward in the 80s. It's hilarious. Just like Gary, it is hilarious. It is deep. It is so well written. It is a great book, a great next step for Gary and his little artistic journey that we get to go along with. Can't wait for you to hear this conversation. I'd like to thank the good people at greenchef.com. Green Chef is sponsoring the show today. Green Chef is a great company who gives you lots of, if you need to make meals and you want to eat a certain way, a healthy way, maybe a decadent way, whatever way you want to eat, Green Chef can help you dial in. They send you all the ingredients to your house. Shop their latest offering, Green Bundles, available at Green Market, your one-stop shop for nutritious grab-and-go breakfasts, brunch kits, wholesome lunches, ready-to-eat snacks, and more that you can easily add to your weekly order. Go to greenchef.com/papa. Go to greenchef.com/60papa and use code 60papa to get 60% off plus free shipping. That's greenchef.com/60papa and use code 60papa to get 60% off plus free shipping. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. My wife is running around doing school now. Her constant thing is, I've got 2 minutes. How am I going to get my stuff and get out the door? How am I going to eat breakfast and have lunch? Green Chef. So Gary Gulman, great comedian, great friend. I adore him. This is a nice, healthy conversation. I read his book. I started reading his book. I'm probably halfway through it. It's so great. You can literally just hear it. Joey, I feel like you are looking forward to this one more because, not more than all the others, but there's a annoying Boston connection that you have with Gary.
We do have the Boston connection. We were annoying, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gary's great. I'm excited.
What is it about Boston and Gary that makes you so happy? Because you grew up there?
I grew up there. He went to the same college my entire family pretty much went to, Boston College.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a kinship.
Kinship.
It's weird though, because I think he literally, and I'm not saying this to bust balls, but I think he's literally 3 times as tall as you. I don't think he's double. I think he might be 3 times as tall.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's not on you. He's a giant.
Yeah.
He's gigantic. The book is great. It's insightful. We'll get into all of it. So let's just jump right in. Enjoy Gary Gulman.
It's a great room.
Love the Wilbur.
Yeah.
It's a really good room.
Yeah.
I did my last special there.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
it's
like,
a great place to shoot a special. I did one there too.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrific.
And
although at the time I had to rely on an audience coordinator to fill it, but
yeah, I know those are always kind of tricky. I was just talking about a building somewhere in DC, and they're like, yeah, it's a great building, 1,500 seats, and you got to do 2.
Oof.
It's like,
tough.
That's tough.
That's tough.
You don't want to
you're preparing for the show, and then you also got to promote it at the same time. That's why I like to stick to about 300. Yeah. The tickets go on sale, they sell out.
Done.
You work on the set.
Right, exactly. Done.
Yeah.
Could you direct your own special?
No. No. I realized recently that I could not invent the rear view mirror in an automobile if you spotted me the mirror. I have no idea how the thing works that makes it night vision. Right? I don't know how that... I don't know what angle you would have to apply that thing to the thing, to the mirror, to get it to give you just neutrality between the high beams.
Not your department.
Not my department.
Not your department.
Not
so when you're getting ready for
build a good sentence.
Yeah.
Add to that
right.
sentence.
When you get ready for this special, you don't want 3 days before producer calling you and asking you some question that you don't want to think about?
No, have no idea.
You just want to roll in and do your thing.
Have no idea. I want a mic stand,
Yeah.
a stool, a wired microphone, because this is insane. I still don't trust the wireless mic.
I do. I know.
Stupid.
I go everywhere I go, and this was a leftover from Seinfeld.
Okay.
He didn't trust the wireless mic, so then I didn't trust the wireless mic. And I go to places. I'll go to corporate gigs, and they're like, "Can you please not use the?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's never a problem.
Never a problem.
I don't like how fat they are, though.
No, it's not
too fat.
Yeah, it's not. It's like using somebody else's baseball bat.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I got the Fat Albert bat.
Oh my gosh! Remember those?
Yes.
Remember those? It's a weird thing, the Fat Albert bat, because you're too young to form memories, so you don't remember ever swinging it and hitting anything with it. But it was always there in the house, so it had to have gotten used at some point. You just can't. You don't remember it. Yeah.
This is why perfect segue, early segue to early compliments on your book.
Thank you. A compliment is that you read it. That makes me so happy.
I'm not through it.
Okay,
but
no, I
I've read
understand.
a bunch of it.
I understand.
It's so good.
Oh, thanks, Tommy.
There's two places I can start, and you're just gonna have to ride out and be uncomfortable with some compliments
okay.
for a minute.
All right.
Number one, I will go with it's Misfit, growing up awkward in the 80s. So within 2.5 paragraphs, I've already lived 4 of your references.
Wow.
I mean, we're so on the money. It's like you wrote it. Like I was like your friend down the street. It was like.
That's basically what I did. I wrote it with certain readers in mind who would get the references of a certain age. And so I had a really good reader who was able to give me good feedback.
So, I mean, when you hit near the beginning, you're being shocked by something, and you equated it to when you see Bert from Bert and Ernie doing the pigeon, and you see his legs for the first time.
Yeah.
How startled you were. I was literally like, my little Tommy voice at 6 years old yelled out last night, "Yeah, what was that?"
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, wow.
And there's so much of that.
Oh, Tom, thank you.
It's
That means so
rich and so
much to me,
deep.
because I admire your work and your taste in stuff. Like,
that leads.
we read a lot of the same books, and you always recommend such excellent writing.
Well, that's my second compliment. Was that you and I are connected through comedy and our friendship in New York and all that stuff. But also, you're the only comedian I ever discuss books with.
Yes.
Ever.
Yes.
There's not
Oh,
one
that's so
other.
funny.
Once in a while, Colin
Colin,
Quinn would be
right.
But he just says Confederacy of
He
Dunces
says
over and
reread the
over again.
Confederacy of Dunces every 3 months until you memorize it.
Right. He's never suggested another book. It's great. He's right.
Yeah.
He's 100% correct.
He's right. Yeah.
But that's it. That's where the conversation
No,
ends.
it's his Bible.
I've never had Robert Kelly come up and suggest a book.
You know what, dude? You gotta read My Struggle, not the Hitler one.
Yeah. So you and I talk a lot about books, and I'll literally be without a book and text you and what have you got? Anything? And I'll shoot you stuff.
Yeah.
Even when we're been on separate coasts. So I know that you don't go into writing a book lightly.
No.
And 100%, if I didn't know you, I would say you wrote a real book.
Wow.
It's so surprising. Your
man.
phrases are great. Every sentence is a delight.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
all the
Oh,
stuff
my
we
gosh.
love about books.
Yes.
You achieved in your book.
Oh, wow. That is the highest compliment. I'm gonna take it in and say thank you. I couldn't ask for anything more.
It's such a pleasure.
Because we revere books.
Yeah.
And we want to do right by the form, and you have, and I was praying that I would, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I was so cocky. I was reading your book, and I was like, poor Gary, I got to tell him about the typo on page 3. He's going to be very upset. It's probably already printed. I'm going to have to tell him that he left the P out of pool.
That's that was our neighbor, the Robinses. Welcome to the Ool.
Welcome to the Ool,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
that was
it was one of the first jokes I really embraced. Notice there is no P in it. It was just
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, let's keep it that way. And it's just I couldn't even read at the time. My mother read it to me, and it just I was like, this is what I love.
This is a joke.
This is wordplay, but it's also letter play, right?
Welcome to the Ool. There's no P in our pool. Let's
Yeah.
keep it that way.
Yeah. Notice there is no P in it.
I actually put the book down, jotted the note to tell you.
Oh, thanks.
And then went back and read the second sentence,
Oh, that's so
which
funny.
completed it that there was no P in pool.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, it was very funny.
Yeah, and that on the last day of kindergarten, it was my kindergarten teacher's Ool.
Right.
And on the last day of kindergarten, I made a joke. I said to her as we were saying goodbye, I said, because they were neighbors. I would go over there all the time. And I said, I'll see you at the Ool. And I thought I was so clever.
It's great. The book is written, first of all, brilliant stroke on the pre-intro,
Oh,
pre-introduction, and then in the introduction, saying that you don't like people who skip the intro.
oh yeah. I look down on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what else are they half-assing in their life?
Exactly. And we know people who claim to be a lot more prolific in things, and they skim things, and they
Yeah.
it's really irritating. And
I know.
And the one thing I learned in writing the book was that the hardest part would be asking people to read it.
Yeah.
It's so because I feel like I'm busy, they're busy, and so I can't thank you enough.
There's a rhythm to these things too. When you ask people to do stuff, there's like certain times, and same with like any art you put out. There are certain times when everybody can digest it. It's just you hit the rhythm and the timing is, and everybody was there for it. And then other times it comes out when everyone is distracted and off on doing things, and it really has no reflection on the work.
Totally.
There's something in the zeitgeist that just has us our attention in other places.
You just have to, and Joey Mullen should know this. Don't take everything so personal. Because
yeah, Joey.
I got it.
He takes a lot of things personal.
Well, he's young and he's earnest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what it is?
partly.
His nickname that Kira Sultanovich has given him is 4 ounce, because we went to a steakhouse. He came on the road with me and went to a steakhouse. I was going to give him the riches of the road.
Yeah.
And he ordered a 4 ounce steak, which we didn't even know they made them that
No,
size.
I didn't know that was on the kids menu.
I believe so. So his nickname now
Surprised
is
they'd trust
So if you-
somebody with silverware who was asking for a 4 ounce.
We're gonna give this person a steak knife?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
That's like the first anecdote I ever shared on a podcast. I was like, oh, this will be funny, and I've just been ruthlessly beat down for it ever since.
Yeah, that's what happened with Baba Booey.
That's right. He thought it was cute.
Yeah. Oh, they'll forget about it by tomorrow. 60 years later.
And then your intro goes into the story, the epic story
Oh yeah.
of
yeah.
of your
Yeah,
depression,
My Great Depresh.
your Great
Yes.
Depresh,
Yes.
and which everybody knows from your great special and
thanks.
stuff that of what the Great Depression was. But man, every time, and you do such a good job. I mean, it's not even that. It's poetry because you kind of distill it down to this moment, and then go back into why we're writing this book. Is I had to go back home after being in trouble and live at home for a while. And here is my experience, my memories of going through childhood, and it goes from all through school.
Yeah.
Which is such a great format.
Oh, thanks.
It made me nervous because I know when my books are all essays.
Yeah.
So I can shuffle the deck.
Sure.
And if something's really strong, all of a sudden I can pump it up to the front of the book.
Right.
If something's troubling, they're all great.
Yeah.
But if one's less than,
but also
I can jump it to the back.
Yeah.
But you're locked into 1st through 10th, kindergarten through 12.
Yeah. 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 The thing with that was that it was there are certain grades that are kind of the same as the grade before. So I combine 8th and 9th and 6th and 7th because they were essentially you're the same type of person through those grades. So I combined those because otherwise it would have been kind of a repeat. I wasn't much different a person. So I had my editor was very helpful in that, because initially I was like, no, I got to write every grade, and he says, you're not. These stories aren't different. They should be combined into one chapter. You're the same person, and you change so much in those grades, and there are so many firsts. First Hebrew school day, first friend, first crush, and all these things, and then 8th and 9th is just pretty much, well, this is the same chapter. There's nothing really to distinguish it in terms of maturity and evolution.
Interesting. That's really cool. It really made me contemplate how some ways how grown up we are at such an early age.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about the stuff in like kindergarten and first and second, like there is very mature reflections. But I know they're not really reflections. They were things that you felt at the time. Like when your first crush on that girl. Yeah. I had one like kindergarten, first grade. This girl, Nancy. Yeah. And I was head over heels. I was aware this was a love affair. Yes. We weren't doing anything but wrestling in the leaves.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it was.
Yeah.
And then at one point you talk about, in like second grade, I think, or first, about defending your father's honor.
Oh, yeah.
As a Jewish kid.
Yeah.
And I know that love affair and the idea that I have something to defend in this family lineage. That's not you as now just putting it on. Like you felt that at that age. And you're this little kid.
Yeah.
We all are these little.
Yes.
Like when you see these little kids and they can't hold a fork. They're like Joey with a steak knife. It's in some ways so feeble, but yet there's this.
Yeah. But it's also guilt I carried through my 30s, where I looked back on it, and it was very helpful to go through these things with my therapist as they would come up as the grades went along. That was a really special section of my therapy, in that I could bring these events that I had felt so bad about, and he pointed out just what you pointed out, that you were a child.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have been expected. And the lucky thing about writing in the style that we write about our childhood is that we didn't have the words as a child, but now we can put them in to a child's head, and it's kind of comedic.
Right.
And that was really helpful. And I think we have Flaubert to thank for that, who was like the first person to do narration where it wasn't like a play.
Right.
Where it was people would have thoughts and things like that. So I've never been able to get through Madame Bovary or anything like that, but I understand that he was very influential, and we're all driving on the highway he created. But it was really helpful to analyze these things with the vocabulary of an adult, but the mind of a child. That was really helpful in finding the voice for the memoir.
It's so interesting. It's really you kind of freaked me out in that, like, if I reflect on certain things that were big, like certain events that happened were super humiliating. Yeah. And then I start filling it in. You seem to have a real memory. Yeah. Like in the classroom stuff, like that you knew in like 10th grade or 9th grade that who sat behind who. Yeah. And what third period was. Yeah. And like that kind of detail.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Was that, do you always carry that, or was it jarred by?
I mean, part of it was I was intersecting with a lot of the people and events that I grew up with while I was living at home with my mom. And there's one other kid who I could go to corroborate a lot of these of these things, who remembered, and he would sometimes add things and expressions and things. That his name is Phil Murphy, and he was really, really helpful. But what people I think overestimate my memory. I've been telling a lot of these stories for a really long time, or thinking about them, and in a lot of cases writing them down, wanting to be able to tell them on stage, and I just didn't have the platform for some of these stories because there's a lot of pipe, right, that you have to get out, that you don't have time for at a 15-minute cellar spot.
Yeah.
So this was really helpful in getting a lot of these stories out, and they would develop, but also a lot of them were attached to either trauma or great joy, so that I had fond memories of it, and I've reflected on it a lot. That when you're depressed, there's a lot of regrets, and there's a lot of remembering nostalgically things that happened, and you're getting no solace because you think, oh, I'll never feel that great again, and why can't I go back in time? So it's a brain that is a blessing and a curse, I think.
I've been talking about in my act recently. At several points during my act, I talk about our stupid brain, how it's just,
oh my gosh,
it's just it seems its primary objective is to collect all the insults ever hurled at you and play them over and over to the end of time.
Oh, that's so insightful.
And I keep going back to it about it, like it literally is our own device.
Yeah,
that is the thing that's torturing us.
Yeah.
The thing I don't, and then later on I talk about, like in the beginning I talk about it in kind of a trivial way, and then I talk about it in a little bit of a deeper way. As someone who has never gone to therapy,
you're remarkably evolved for somebody who hasn't gone to therapy.
What does therapy, I mean, what is the primary objective of therapy? Is it this is a huge question, but is it like, I'm trying to feel it out because I'm talking to my audience, and the part of me, because I'm just, my wires and chemistry set happen to balance out.
Yeah,
I just got lucky.
Yeah.
So I can sit back and say, I really shouldn't pay that much attention to myself. Like why should I bring another stranger in to deal with what I've got going on? Because it's not a lot going on.
Okay.
There's heavy stuff, but it's not.
Yeah.
But I know it's wrong when I'm saying it on stage to some degree, because it is so valuable for so many people.
Yeah.
What is the primary?
That is a great and broad question. I think one of the things is something you just talked about, which is one of the most frustrating aspects of depression is this thing that you could, in certain cases, use your brain. You could use to get yourself out of situations. Mm-hmm. is telling you things that are false, but it might be one of those cases where the medium is a trusted one, and that it's your brain. You're like, well, it has to be true. Why would it be lying to me? But certain things that it was telling me when I was sick was that I was worthless, and I was evil, and talentless, and despised, and then you come out of it and you're like, all right, I'm not perfect, but I'm not evil incarnate,
right?
And so you have this objective brain in the room with you, who, in that case, I will say, when it got to the worst, the therapist was unable to do anything. It was the equivalent of trying to rewire a house while it's on fire.
Right.
So it was the chemicals that got me out of that, and to a point where my therapist could say, okay, the reason you are so upset about these hecklers and people talking during your act is because when you were 7 and putting on a magic show, your brothers were pointing out how you were doing the tricks during the magic show, and if they were 9 or 10, it would be shitty but forgivable, but they were 20 and 22. They should have known better. And then so you're getting this corroborating person who's saying, no, that was fucked up that your father made you repeat the first grade despite the fact that you were a really good student and taller than everybody.
Right.
And so and I did Marin yesterday, and Marin talked about this thing, and he's so heavy, but he talked about this thing where these people you need to trust, that they have your best interests and that they are almost infallible, are doing really fucked up things. And the only thing your brain can do really is say, it's me. And so you develop that. But then if you have a therapist at some point along the line, they can say, no, that's pretty fucked up. I've talked to people, and generally fathers don't have their really good students repeat the first grade and claim it's because my father's claim was that I know you, but he would come over 3 hours a week on a Sunday, and most of it was watching the Patriots get their asses kicked, just punting every 6 seconds. And
I know you.
Yeah, he says, I know you. You don't know. A lot of the parents back then, didn't know their kids.
No.
They were just these. It
wasn't about knowing us.
Yeah. What did Eddie Vedder say in Jeremy? Jeremy was something his mommy couldn't wear,
Right.
which is oh my gosh, that guy. The older I get, the more poetic I find.
I know.
These guys were just it was over our heads at 19, but these guys were really saying some deep, meaningful things. I get the chills sometimes listening to Chris Cornell or Cobain. It's just like, oh my word.
Like, that's what they were saying?
Yes, and if anything, they were underrated.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I just
I'm
loved
the
them because
same.
they rocked.
Totally. They moved you. You didn't really know why.
Yes, didn't know why. And they viscerally were connecting with us. And then they were also like frost level poets.
Yeah. And you see it as a 50-year-old man, you're like, that's what that lyric meant?
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't even care to decipher. I wasn't trying to figure out what they were saying. Really wasn't it.
No.
It was just entertain us.
Yes. This wail. Oh my gosh, they just
completely.
Yeah.
I find even with like music's that interesting that way, and not even just like the grunge any era.
Yeah.
You listen to stuff from like the 40s, and they're like and you listen to those words and you're like, holy cow.
Oh yeah, they were deep people.
Deep.
Yes. And understood romance and love.
Right.
And it's something that's so frustrating about comedy, because the best of it doesn't hold up.
Not only does the best of it not hold up, there's just the reaction we're asking for back from this room full of human beings is this little sliver.
Right.
It's just the
right.
It's just the laugh of the just.
I know.
I can't. You can take music and you can.
Yeah.
You can bring them to their knees. You can have them sobbing and screaming and chanting.
Yes.
Music just has so much more language to it. Without the lyrics, music has so much more language to it.
Yeah.
And as much as you feel and want to convey, it comes down to and even if your audience loves you and gives you space and gives you some line to pull out, not that long.
Nope.
Don't stay out there that long.
Nope. No. It's
not your job.
It's extraordinary, and that's been one of the great things in my recovering from that deep depression. Was during my depression, music could make me cry, but it couldn't make me do anything else. It couldn't make me feel joy or reflect or cry in a good way, cry from happiness or feeling for empathy. But now that I'm happy, I've getting music back and being able to read again. That was the other thing. I wasn't able to read for 2.5 years. So I've been reading more than ever now. So
I've told you the guilt I had before your Depresh, right? With the book selection that I.
Oh yeah. But that didn't.
That didn't have anything.
No,
I mean,
that didn't.
I'm sure it's. But
no, it didn't make me feel
like,
bad at all.
No. I remember you just looking at me like, "What the fuck was that?" I gave you Nussgaard's.
Yeah.
Struggle.
It was too much for me.
And there was one horrible book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great, but one horrible one about dumping out the father's after the father dies. Clearing out his house. Yeah. And it's really.
Oh yeah, really
heavy. And I remember just standing outside the cellar and you just going like, "What? What'd you do that to me for?"
Yeah.
I felt so bad.
Yeah, just send me a symphony of blue notes.
But he was so prolific and so deep that it was
oh
like,
my gosh, but also innovative in terms of his structure of those books. Like he Flaubert'd the novel
completely.
Yeah.
Right. Completely.
Yeah.
The level of detail.
Yeah, the idea of realism, he made a zag, man. Yeah, it's really
out.
it's really impressive and really rewards the avid reader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of the only times those books were like
600
each.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there 6 of them?
At least.
And
or maybe at most.
yeah, I think it's at most.
Yeah.
I came home from a flight. I read it like most of the flight, came home and went right to the lounge chair. My kids are running around.
That is rare because a flight is an endurance, and reading during a flight is because it's almost like the driveway moment where if something's really good on the radio, you're in the driveway. Like Stern used to be like that for me in certain podcasts. But yeah, to do that with a book, that's not easy because it's also a brain drain.
Complete, you're getting exhausted.
Yeah.
And I remember walking out to the lounge chair in the backyard after saying a quick hello and just continuing to read and just sitting there with it. And I was like, like your brain separating from itself.
Yeah.
As I'm reading, my other brain is saying, how bizarre that we're out here still reading this book. Look what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Very unusual.
No, it's great.
Really
Did
unusual.
you ever read A Prayer for Owen Meany?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Irving.
Yeah, I'm rereading that.
Are you?
And so I forget who recommended rereading. It might have been an Instagram book purveyor or something talking about how important it is to reread, especially books. Because I reread The Great Gatsby during this book because I had read it in 11th grade, and you read it so much differently.
Yeah.
Especially when it's been that big a gap. Because I read A Prayer for Owen Meany when I was 18 years old. And so I identified with Owen and Johnny, and now I'm reading and I'm connecting with the stepfather, and I'm connecting also with the religious aspect of it, which I think I was put off by being at a Catholic college and also having so much Hebrew school and everything. I was like, I don't really vibe with the spiritual aspect of it the way he wants me to, and now I really am.
Really?
Because I think faith is this thing that evolves a lot like humans. It's interesting.
It's very interesting. I don't know if it's tied. I asked Marin this last week, actually. I said, do you, as you're getting older, because, he talks about all the tragedy that he went through. And,
I know, with Lynn.
And being mystical, like in his special. Did you see his special?
Yes.
It's really great.
It was really good.
Yeah, I think it's his best.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's his funniest. I don't know if it's his best. I mean, all of his... But this one made me laugh out loud so much.
Oh,
but,
me
but
too.
Still in the heavy
when he was
context.
doing that acting workshop thing within the thing, it's so funny.
It's so funny.
And a little bit silly.
Yeah, I know. He was really, really. He didn't lose any of the gravitas from the subjects he was talking about.
No,
but
not at all.
At all. But he just got. He improved at his craft, and it's funnier.
Yes.
But anyway, I asked him, because it seems like it's, we're all playing from the same brochure in a lot of ways. I said, is there do you find yourself getting more religious? Because he said he got more mystical after he went through his tragedies, and would look for signs and things like that.
I do that too.
I do that. I've done that my whole life.
Interesting.
But I feel like at this age, they're starting to, again, from the brochure, this isn't a new territory. You get to this age and there's like you're starting to lean in. I think it's tied to your mortality. You're starting to pay attention to faith and whatever your God thing is.
Right.
Like I think your your radio dial is starting to kind of hone in on that part.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
I mean, I've been doing it my entire life. I've been obsessed with my death. I mean, the great thing that I noticed recently was, and I noticed it when I was writing the book, at every point during the book, those years that the book covers, I was convinced that I would die by my own hand.
Mm-hmm.
because I was overwhelmed by so much, and the mystery seemed to be at 11 and 17 is, what will be the crisis that will undo me? Will it be a divorce? Will it be the loss of a loved one? Will it be a failure in business? Or something is going to undo me? And now I think, oh, I'm just gonna die. Hopefully I won't be murdered, but I'm probably gonna be. Yeah. I'm gonna die the way most people do, and hopefully it'll be in my sleep and in my early hundreds. But I think, and you happen to ask me this question while I'm reading Denial of Death. Have you ever read that? Okay, I'm gonna recommend it.
Okay,
but also tell you that it's not easy, but it's worthwhile, and that I had to reread one of the chapters, and basically the chapter that I knew was very important and it was hard to grasp, and I think I have kind of a handle on it, is about Kierkegaard being in the 1800s, really the first psychoanalyst. He predated Freud, and what he was saying, and I don't know if I buy into this, but Mark Maron buys into it, and I trust his brain. So what Kierkegaard was saying, and what the idea of this book is, that the greatest anxiety in our life is our death, and our entire character and mindset between the time we realize that we are mortal, which is about 4 or 5 or whenever it is, and our demise, is that we are in such deep denial and try to defy it, and all our energy, psychic energy, is going towards putting away this thing that for some reason we're the only species who is both an animal and aware of their demise, and this is a heavy burden to carry, and it drives people either to depression or, and I don't believe this because I think it's chemical, but schizophrenia, and everything in between, the neuroses caused by this he calls it a paradox, is everything, and I don't believe it's everything. I believe it's contributing because smart people are saying this. And he says, and then he comes to the conclusion that the way out is not to be a hero and defy death by going into war, and he says the only way to find some sort of solace and comfort is through faith. And when he said faith, I was like, had me, then you lost me.
Well, what do you mean by faith, though, when you read that?
In Kierkegaard's case, it was believing in a higher power, or God, or Christ. In my case, my faith is constantly wavering, and I would say I believe in a universe that, call it God, that is in some way ordered, and that it's possible that there is a purpose dictated by this. But I embrace the existentialist, which is there's no meaning. It's all absurd. You find meaning in your actions, and as I always feel like, as long as I feel like I reached my potential, I can go, and I won't be kicking and screaming.
Right.
And
yeah.
And so that's what I got out of the first 180 pages of Denial of Death. So that's my long answer to how I think about death. I've asked my mother, who's 90, and she says, I just don't think about it. I know I don't have much time left, but I don't dwell on it, and I've been blessed with 90 years, and I think that's very healthy, but also I don't think that my brain can turn it off that much. It seems like my ideas on death are sort of this governor on joy, which is that I'll be at my highest moments, and then I'll think, oh yeah, and then I die at the end, no matter how great these things, like just in this, that my friend enjoys my book. Yeah, this is such a great moment, and I'm like, oh yeah, but then we become dust.
Well, I was thinking that too.
I was thinking Norm Macdonald now, because nothing frightened him more than death. Right. and that he's seemed to in his way go out with a lot of I guess I don't know how to put how he did it. He just didn't share it with anybody. No. And some would say that's strength. Others would say, why didn't he let us in? But he went out on his own terms, which I think is very noble.
Yeah. No, it is really noble. when you say when he says faith, that part of my faith journey recently is not tying it so much to, like, my knee jerk would have been years ago would have been when they say faith, that means, oh, I've got to be a Catholic, or I've got to be
Sure.
He means that.
Yeah, and that's what I have. That's what I tie it into with faith. But I think it can be interpreted as something larger and less concrete.
Yeah, faith in this.
Yeah.
Faith in life.
Yeah.
Faith in the journey. Faith in.
Yeah, in the
faith in that
universe,
we're in this
and our
current
place,
right.
and that
You're
and
part
that
of
we're as Maury Schwartz said in Tuesdays with Maury, we're part of the ocean. We're not just a wave.
Right.
And
right.
Can I share an idea regarding Tuesdays with Maury?
Yes, absolutely.
I am certain Maury dreaded Tuesdays. Here comes this sports writer who's going to cash in long after I am gone. Oy.
Here he comes again.
Oh, I'm exhausted. And here he comes
schnorrer.
again. The schnorrer with his yellow legal pads and Bic pens. Why do Jewish writers love yellow legal pads and Bic pens?
Just drain me. Just hook up an IV.
Yeah,
and
how about we
drain
make
me.
it every third Tuesday with Maury? Oy.
Oh man, there is that thing. Yeah, Mark. I was thinking, I didn't say it to him, but watching his thing, especially because it was so funny, was
There should be a podcast where people who were just on the Mark Maron podcast go on to discuss
interpret Mark's
and
podcast.
go through a wish I would have said.
Yeah.
Because he told me this story about somebody, a mean person who wrote him an email calling him a pussy and saying that he shouldn't allow himself to be bullied. And this guy said when he was 7 years old, somebody was bullying him and punched him in the face. And that made me the hero of my own story. And then in the car ride home, I wanted to say to Mark, yeah, this guy's so happy he reaches out to celebrities and tries to shame them about their childhoods.
Yeah,
That's how together this asshole is. So fuck him. And I bet you he's exaggerating how much of a hero he is in his own story. I bet you he drinks himself to sleep every night. Oh my God.
No, Mark is nothing other than thought-provoking.
Yeah, but he lets in these lunatics who are emailing him and lets him get in his head, and it's just like, oh gosh, Mark,
Well,
you
I
don't
was gonna say
boundaries, right?
Yeah, but when I was gonna say when I was with him, watching a special, it was like he's a more visceral Woody Allen. Like he had that Woody Allen thing where but the way you talk and the way you write and what you're saying right now about like, oh, enjoy my book, but I'll be dead tomorrow. That's very Woody Allen-ish also.
Oh, interesting. But those my three guys growing up that I really connected with in comedy, and sadly one of them's dead, one of them's sick, and one of them is a pariah. But Woody Allen, Richard Lewis, and Gary Shandling.
Right.
I really, I was like, oh, these guys are Jewish men who don't feel great about themselves, but have this weird confidence to put on a show.
Yeah.
Which it's so interesting and
well, you talk about that in the book when you talk about when you're figuring out where to sit in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
And the cliques and and can you sit with the burnouts? Can you sit with the whatever? And you mentioned something about like the kids from you knew from the Jewish basketball
from Jewish
league,
JCC basketball, yeah.
And you said something in it. I'm paraphrasing. You probably don't remember anyway.
We're all
'cause
paraphrasing.
You read it all, yeah.
I read it. I read that book 40 times while I was writing it. Right? Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
When you think about
and what's
it?
crazy is when you go on interviews and you're like, people bring stuff up and you're like, what's he talking about right now?
Oh, because sometimes you haven't read it in 9 months because you wrote it so long ago. So I'm reading it, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then other times like, oy.
Well, it's always something to work on.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what's insane.
totally.
You could make it better.
Yes,
to the
yes.
end of
As I
your
was
days.
reading the audio book,
Yeah.
I was saying to the engineer, "Oh, can I rewrite this now?
Yeah.
Is it too late to?"
I know,
oh my gosh,
I know.
yeah.
Which actually, I don't want to get too off track, but the master stroke for when you don't need it to be out and you don't need to go on tour and you don't need it for whatever.
Yeah.
Take that last book that you're going to write and write it for 10 years.
Oh, yes.
Go, just keep.
No, you're absolutely
You know what I
right.
mean? Honestly.
Absolutely
because
right.
you can always be improved.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be a thing?
Oh, that
that
is
when you
something.
take off, you leave it to them at that point?
Yeah. I think you need to be secure enough in your publishability.
Yes. Yeah, you'd have to keep other things. You'd still have to be, people still want to see Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, man, if you could, because now it's like I got a deadline, and I want this out because I want to write another one or whatever. But how much better would it get if you could just keep working on it?
I know.
Green Chef is a CCOF certified meal kit company. Green Chef makes eating well easy with plans to fit every lifestyle, whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals. Green Chef offers a range of recipes to suit your preferences. It's just one of those programs where you look it up, you plan your meals, they send them to you, every little aspect of your meal. Look, we all have different ways of cooking at different times, but when you're just in the everyday going about your life, if it's laid out and you don't have to think about it and all the ingredients are there in one place and everything. I mean, we had this great chicken Caesar salad. You're like, well, how's that going to work? The chicken comes, that goes in the fridge, all of the seasoning, the greens, it's all there. And then when it's chicken Caesar time, you just whip it out. Not like that, Joey. Kickstart your clean eating routine this September with 80 plus weekly options featuring nutrition approved and foodie approved recipes. Choose from 8 meals, including new, quick and easy, calorie smart, delicious discoveries, and plant-based options. The #1 meal kit for eating clean. That's the other thing. This isn't like, a lot of times when you're on the go and you just want to grab something frozen or whatever, processed, even things that look kind of wholesome, they're processed. This is real food. Feel your best during the busy season with delicious, nutritionist-approved recipes featuring clean ingredients with no artificial colors, sweeteners, added corn syrup, limited sugar, limited processed ingredients. Choose salmon, turkey, tilapia, vegetables. This is all stuff that I literally, these good people have sent us some food. I'm not going to say they're completely responsible, but for the first time since I started working out and trying to eat better, I finally started seeing results and started losing weight. And my doctor's going to be so happy. Thank you, Green Chef. Green Chef, go to greenchef.com/60papa and use the code 60papa to get 60% off plus free shipping. That's greenchef.com/60papa. Use the code 60papa to get 60% off plus free shipping. The #1 meal kit for eating well. I'm going to get maybe because we have an in with them, maybe I can get my nephew Russell. Write that down, Joey. See if we can get my nephew Russell some Green Chef. I'll even throw in a couple bucks. But this is a guy that wants to dial in. He desperately wants to eat well. He desperately wants to lose weight, have a better life. And I keep telling him, and he wants to do it, but he just doesn't even know how to cook. He hears turkey burgers are good, and he just throws turkey chopped meat in a frying pan. So if I can get this to Russell, he'll be so happy. Thank you, Green Chef.
Cafeteria,
thank you. And you mentioned that going and sitting with the kids from the JCC.
Yeah.
You said something about these kids, these Jewish basketball, lanky teenagers.
Yeah.
But they had a quiet confidence about them.
Yes. They were themselves.
And
they were oddballs.
And I find that one of the most remarkable things about everyone Jewish in my life.
Oh, interesting.
I always felt like because I grew up I was Catholic, and our school was a lot of Jewish kids, so we kind of bounced between families. And I remember at a young age realizing the Jewish people just have life kind of dialed in.
That's interesting.
Like they know how to grieve.
Yeah.
They know how to celebrate. They know how to, and there's some similarities, but they just, for the big questions, they always seemed to have what you were describing of those kids, like kind of a knowledge of it. But then
right.
it also manifests itself into the most neurotic of my friends.
Right. Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
I mean, there are a couple of things that popped out to me when you said that. One was that I had a theory for why these kids were so confident. It was because they didn't rely entirely on the high school for their social standing.
Mm-hmm.
They went to Jewish summer camp every summer, where the average looking Jewish kid, the average looking person who's Jewish at a high school is the best looking, most athletic person at a Jewish summer camp, because they call all the most talented people from the pool. And the other thing, so they had already kissed girls before I had, because they were hitting t-ball at the Jewish summer camp.
Yeah.
But the other thing was, within every culture, there are people who are just like us, and we see it. We're very lucky in that if you play sports or you're a musician or you're an artist, you're going to intersect with a broader culture. If I'm an accountant, I'm mostly going to see white guys. But as a comedian and as an athlete, I became friendly with black people and Hispanic people and Asian people and all these things, and we're very fortunate. But my wife is a black woman, and I said the same thing about her and family in terms of dialed in on grieving. Their funerals are much more cathartic and a celebration of life. And even the terms they use, the vocabulary, it's a going home service, and it's just it really it's a different vibe to the Jews and the Christians and Catholics and the other thing is that it's probably just a northeastern thing, but there's a I don't want to call it a cynicism, but I think this is a good example. When I told my mother-in-law, Miss Jeannie, that I had finished my book, her reaction was, "We are blessed, Gary. We are blessed." And when I told my mother I had finished, and I had told her a million times, but she needed to know this. She didn't say "we are blessed" or Mazel Tov or anything. She said, "And who's the publisher?" And it's one of those things where as it's happening, you're like, well, this is a bit, and also. She's not a member of the literati. She's not an extensive reader. She might know Random House. She definitely doesn't know the imprint of Macmillan that my book was published under. And it's also one of these things where you probably learn it with different people in your life. There are certain joys you can't share with everybody because they just won't get it. You don't tell you tell your mother you performed at the Carnegie Hall. You're not going to tell her about the funny bone and Syracuse.
But even when you tell her about the Carnegie Hall, she'll say, "Did people come?"
Yeah, she said, "Did you sell out?"
Right.
Was it a sellout? Yeah, because she needs to add that because she's running a little podcast of her own. It's just phone calls where she's telling the people in her life that her son sold out Carnegie Hall,
and she's worried.
Yeah,
she's like, "Okay, you finished the book, but now my poor baby's going to be rejected by the
Oh
world."
my gosh, there was this really interesting story, and I'm not comparing myself in any way to this, but I love this story that Philip Roth told about right before he published Portnoy's Complaint. And he was in a cab with his parents, and they were driving him home in New York City, and he said to his parents, "Now, people are going to call you, and they're going to ask for interviews, and I just want you to know you can say yes, you can say no. I don't care. This is fiction. I'm not using you." And he said that his father told him later that Philip got out of the car and his mother started crying. And when the father asked him, "Why are you crying?" and she said, "Because he's deluded." He was Philip Roth at the time. This wasn't his first book. He was Goodbye Columbus was an enormous sensation, and he's deluded. Oh, kills me.
This killer. God, what a giant he is.
Oh my word. Yeah. I mean, you read him and you're like, why do I bother?
I know.
Yeah.
I
It's like
know.
Maria Bamford. I just
Yeah.
listened to her book, and it's just like,
Oh,
oh my!
really?
I'm glad I didn't listen to it before I wrote mine, because I would have stopped halfway through. It's like when I used to watch Regan,
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
Attell.
I know.
It's like, oh,
It's like, oh, geez.
why are we muddying the waters by offering our? Yeah.
I'll give you a little book story because it's connected to Philip Roth, because Philip Roth interviewed this guy, and I only discovered it after, so it kind of jogged my memory. But I was, and you're the only person I can tell these stories to.
Oh, good.
You and my friend Lou from back home. He's the only other person I talk about reading. He's a lawyer. And so this summer, I'm in at this beach house, and I'm meditating, as I do every morning, you know.
TM?
TM, yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent, isn't it?
It's
Better than a nap, man.
It's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So much better than a nap.
Yeah.
A nap, try and get to the stage after a nap.
Oh my gosh.
After TM,
And you realize how little of a nap. Well, it's just 20 minutes, and it is so much more refreshing than an hour and a half nap.
after a nap in the middle. I did it.
Yeah.
I made the mistake. I was so
Oh, yeah.
tired. I went for
Yeah.
a run when I got to the gig last weekend.
Good for you.
And which was good, but then I
Yeah.
came back and I was like, I'm so tired, I'm just napping.
Yeah.
Skip the TM.
Yep.
And I napped for an hour and a half and came out in a coma.
Fog and depressed. Yes.
Yeah. And had to really hydrate, just all the tricks to
Oh,
get
yeah,
on
yeah,
stage.
yeah. Wow.
So anyway, and you know, so when you do TM, or anytime you sit quietly with your thoughts, some weird thoughts pop into your head. So I'm meditating, and the one thing that comes up in my brain is this book with a title, Just Jokes. Just Jokes. And, you know, my other book is completed. It's been out for a bit, and I'm thinking, like, where am I going next? Maybe that's it. I'm just filling in the blanks.
Yeah.
But I just see this white cover with this thing that says Just Jokes, and then it goes off into squirrels and whatever else I was thinking about in third grade and what I'm going to eat, who knows what. So anyway, I pop out after 20 minutes, and I go sit down at the table where my computer is. I sit at the table, and I look over, and there's a stack of books right next to the place is filled with books, and there's a stack of books, and on the top is Milan Kundera's The Book of Laughter and Forgetting. Wow. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. Yeah. You know, the mystical thing that I always kind of like.
No, of course.
I'm like, well, that's
there are
kind
no
of
coincidences.
That's strange. You know, and I don't know him really as much as I read. I don't really know him or these books. So I see The Book of Laughter and Forgetting. I'm like, oh, that's odd. I was just thinking just books, and now. Yeah. And I open up my computer, and the emails, and the first one is New York Times, Milan Kundera dead at 93.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I open that up, and I start reading that he just passed. And, well, now I don't know why, but I have to read this book.
Of course. No, of course.
Obviously.
Yeah.
As busy as he is in the afterlife, he dropped by.
No, totally.
Right?
No, I get that.
And I picked it up and have read that one, and the other big one, The Lightness of Being.
Oh my gosh.
Both of them giants. I don't know there's no end to the story because I'm still figuring it out and getting what I am.
What do you think you want to do
books.
next in terms of your books?
It's hard to even say out loud.
You don't have to. I read Stephen Wright's novel, Harold.
Oh, yeah?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Just delightful.
Really?
Yeah.
The novel is definitely one of the things rambling in my head.
I've always wanted to write a novel, but I remember two things. One is in quiz show, Charles Van Doren says you could fill Yankee Stadium with all the world's mediocre novelists.
I know novel's almost too big a word.
Yeah, and I'm picturing.
How about just a book?
Yeah, and I'm picturing all the mediocre novelists sitting in Yankee Stadium, and they're not sure why they're there, And then on the scoreboard it says, "Hey, mediocre novelists, we decided to see how big a stadium you could fill."
Welcome to mediocre novelist night. Here's your bobblehead.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know if you've ever watched that movie Quiz Show with Ray Fiennes and Herb Stempel is played by John Turturro. A tremendously kikey performance by John Turturro.
Really?
He does a great stereotypical Jew. He did it in Barton Fink and in he played the Schmata in Miller's Crossing, the Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, oh
my gosh, that's underrated. Goodfellas gets all the credit from that year for mob movies, but that was a great gangster movie, one of the greatest of all time. The hi-hat, the vocabulary. I mean, it was, oh my gosh, it's just it's an incredible movie that holds up better. And this will be controversial. It holds up better than The Godfather, because The Godfather has some clunkers where you're just like, my friend and I, Mike Bonfiglio, the director, we talk about how Tessio, on top of being a very strong gangster, he also has this remarkable ability to remember the different toilets throughout the restaurants all over Manhattan. He's able to know where to hide a gun in various toilets, and we're just like, this is so absurd. It's so absurd, and Don Corleone insists on being told of bad news immediately. So instead of calling him or wiring him, I'm going to take a flight from Los Angeles to New York, and then it's just it's a beautifully shot film, but there are so many holes in it. Whereas Miller's Crossing, it's like, oh my gosh, I think this is how they would have behaved.
Oh, so incredible. When he's walking with Turturro in the woods.
Oh, yes,
his
right?
groveling.
Yes,
oh
the
my
groveling.
God. The shot of the trees up above.
It's incredible.
So insane.
Yeah.
How do we get to there?
The cafeteria?
No. It was...
the Jews who were so confident, and
Milan Kundera.
The thing that you want to do next.
Oh, the next thing
that you're not sure.
My thing is not. There's no part of me that thinks great novel.
Right. Yeah.
But a funny book about gnomes.
Oh, that's funny. I just think the funny short story. Like you do so great with those in the New Yorker. Those are so strong.
Well, that's the thing, is like it's not far from the stuff in the books. It's all essays.
Yeah, but the intellect required to put together those stories, because there's absurdism, but they're also based in reality, and they're just the perfect. It's also the perfect place for them in the New Yorker, because every time I read them, I'm like, oh yeah, this is exactly where, because it's just
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like the New Yorker is kind of the late night talk shows for comedy, is the way I kind of look at it.
But Dick Cavett.
But they in that they make you continue training.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, right.
You're always like,
I see what you mean.
I want to be a part of that club. I want to get more in there. I'd like to be more prolific and put like I.
Yeah, but how many of those people are also nightclub comics?
Right.
Like,
Right. So I don't know, but I mean, there's something, again, not comparing, but
that's a great way to look at it, though, as something, because you. I mean, I thought everyone has been great, but you must feel yourself getting better at it, and it becoming a little bit easier, which is another great thing to learn and share with our friend Joey, is that in every era of our life, we've come across something where we're like, how the hell am I going to get past it? How am I going to figure this out? And we always have. And so as you get older, it's important to spend less time in that period where you don't think you can do it and go right to I'll figure it out, rather than because that's where procrastination comes from, and either waiting to the last minute or being so paralyzed that you pass on things or don't even undertake them. There were so many times in my life where I said I want to write a book, and I talked myself out of it every time, and I regret it.
Yeah. There's there's also the thing of it's kind of tricky because there's also the part where I always thought, well, I have to be worthy of it.
Yes.
I have to get good enough and be worthy enough to have a book or be on the Tonight Show or or do
but it
whatever.
reminds me of that movie Adaptation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they were two brothers and one was neurotic and the other one was like, well, why can't I write a screen? Yeah,
Exactly.
You need to be that second guy.
You do.
Yeah.
You really do.
And we got into this thing that we were terrible at compared to where we are now, and we kept going, and the odds were against us, and we're still doing it, and yet we have to relearn that every time we undertake something new, and it's sad.
Well, it's not. Well, yeah, but how much new do we have to do now?
No, not that much, but
maybe make a film,
right?
Do something like that, but.
But I want to, Sade and I want to start a family or have a child, and but part of me is like, what if I do as badly as my parents did?
Impossible.
I couldn't live with myself if I effed up a kid as bad as my parents messed me up. So
impossible.
That's so good.
I always think about that with Fitzsimmons, actually, Greg Fitzsimmons.
Right.
Like he had a lot of obstacles thrown at him by his father.
Yeah.
And he broke the cycle.
Yeah.
His father got it from his father, from his father,
right,
from his father.
yeah.
Greg was the one.
Yeah.
Which shows you it can be done.
Fitz is something else, man.
And he broke the
another tortoise.
The chain.
Another tortoise, right?
Yeah. And he broke the cycle and raised this beautiful family.
Yeah.
Who knows nothing but a great couple of parents.
Right.
It really is pretty
that's
remarkable.
A good point. Yeah.
Okay, so you and I have been going through our comedy career, literally 1990. You started in 98.
No, 93. October 11th, 93.
October 11th, 93.
Yeah.
I was June 12th, 93.
No way.
Yeah.
So right
your
after
birthday's coming up
right
next
after
week in a couple weeks.
So right after you graduated from college, or
no, it was
a year later?
3 years later.
Oh, okay.
3 years later. And so we're at the same mark.
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
And when I reading your book, it's so funny because you as a child have your little comedy antenna up very early.
Oh my gosh.
As I did too.
Yeah.
And it's also the funny things happening in the culture were so great. So I just want to off the top of my head go through some of them.
Oh, great.
Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
We both
despised him,
but wrapped in something that we at the time I thought I what's wrong with me? I don't love this guy.
No, I know.
But he was really not very funny.
No, never was funny. I don't remember a single thing he said. Never mind a funny thing he said. I don't remember a single. Yeah. He was just useless. Whereas Bugs Bunny is just we can rattle off 9 different episodes in which oh my gosh, when he's in the argument with the gangsters, but he's also a cop and Muggsy, and oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Going into the grave, goodbye, old friend. Fooling Elmer Fudd into burying himself alive.
Oh my gosh, and the barber of Seville, the rabbit of Seville, and oh my gosh, he's with his hand, and oh my gosh,
a comedic genius.
Yes,
Mel Blanc,
a comedic genius, versatile, and as we were just saying, comedy doesn't hold up. Bugs holds up, and it's 80 years old.
It really does. It doesn't hold up if you're a young parents would not think it holds up.
No.
Watching people resolve their conflicts with shooting each other in the face.
It should have never been in a time slot where kids could watch it.
Here's a coal shovel to the face.
But the kids who were into Mickey and Disney just never vibed, and it was the Bugs Bunny people.
Right. Okay. So you're in the Bugs Bunny camp. So what was your feeling, and did you digest and gather up Wacky Packs?
Oh, I loved Wacky Packs. Those were incredible, but it was like a punishment of death if I were to stick them on the walls of the house, which I wanted to all the time, and my mother would go bananas over sticking the wacky packs on them. She didn't find them so funny.
Pretty younger.
Do you know that the author of Mouse, Art Spiegelman, drew wacky packs?
Really?
He worked for Topps.
No.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite pieces of trivia about the Holocaust.
Because that, as a child, is... Mine too, man. As a child, all you wanted was, and the reason you're attracted to it, is people are taking this everyday bullshit and twisting it.
Yes. We craved irreverence. That's what we loved in Bugs Bunny. And we were so sick and tired of these goddamn commercials that were lying to us. And
Why were we tired at 5?
Because I think we were very mature. We hated being lied to and condescended to, and
knew it was boring at the very least.
Yes.
So we need someone to take
and
comment and make it vomit.
We liked the older kids, and the older kids were put off by bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take Comet and make it vomit.
Yes, or even it was interesting because Topps baseball cards was what made wacky packs, and there was a sticker that was like of a gorilla, and it was supposed to be like, but I forget what they called Topps, but it was an insult, and I remember understanding at least that they were making fun of a group within their category. I didn't know that wacky packs made Topps, but I was like, look at them taking shots at a competitor. I was like, they have no fear. And Mad Magazine was the same thing that I loved. I don't know if Mad holds up, but when they would take
my next one.
Yeah, take dumps on movies and TV, it was like, oh my gosh, yes,
Could not believe it.
It's all horseshit.
All horseshit. Everything's horseshit. Mad Magazine took everything. It took your movies, your TV shows, your parents, your family, your neighbors.
Yes.
It took ads.
Yes,
it took
dumb people. Dumb
just,
people.
And ripped them to shreds.
Yes.
And as a young kid, you're like,
oh my gosh,
finally.
More. It was an oasis of honesty in a desert of slick, smarmy. I was about to mention a comedian. A Jerry Lewis, but on talk shows world, because his films were funny, but man, was he full of shit.
You ever hear you know that series on comedy? That I forget the guy's name. He did early.
Oh, the CDs.
Interviews.
This with like Carson and Woody Allen. Those were and Seinfeld. They were incredible.
The greatest.
Oh my gosh,
ever. This guy just loved comedy.
Yes,
and
he was like the Judd Apatow of that era. Yeah,
and he loved he got them to open up in a relaxed way that was.
Yes,
if
it was
any
remarkable.
Young comic, 4 ounce. You should be listening to these interviews. They're the greatest comedy interviews of all time.
Yeah. They were our podcasts when we were young in comedy. I remember you couldn't get Process and Shop Talk anywhere else.
You listen to the one on Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis is backstage of a TV show that he's making.
Yeah.
And you get the jaded, smug Jerry Lewis, like
the Jerry Langford and King of Comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The silk robe backstage. Why are you asking me that question?
Jesus.
But he still can't help but pontificate. It's a gem.
You thought his hair was oily. His persona. Oh my gosh.
It is a gem.
Wow.
So good. Mad Magazine, when I found that, and it was like, oh my God, you've been trying to get me to read Archie and Richie Rich
and Casper the Ghost.
Casper the Ghost, whose brothers were a little nasty, and you kind of like.
Oh yeah, I rooted for the ghostly trio. Yeah, they were cruel. Yeah,
they were cool to me, and you liked them.
Yeah.
But you had me digesting all this, and you didn't tell me that there was Mad Magazine out there. When I found it, it's all I would read. And
me too. And then I would draw the caricatures.
You would?
Yeah. Wow. I loved it. Yeah.
And my grandfather when my mother said, "Well, you stop reading that crap," and my grandfather said, "I'll never, God rest his soul." He said, "Leave him alone. Reading's reading." Anything he's reading is good.
I love it.
And I got a free pass.
That's amazing.
To go with Mad Magazine.
That's amazing because it was elevated writing. It was sharp.
It was sharp.
Yeah.
I literally was thinking about
Especially
it the
for
other
a
day.
kid.
I was like, are they still doing? I know a lot of them have died.
Yeah. Recently,
one
I
of
think
them
Al
just-
Jaffe
Yeah,
passed away.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Such a
my
bummer.
God.
Oh my gosh.
But I wonder if they're still coming out with new episodes, with new. Because I mean,
I think
everything's
so, but I
ripe.
couldn't swear it to.
I know.
I couldn't swear to it.
I remember seeing Gaffigan. I think was on the cover.
No way.
Once or Seinfeld was, but I think Gaffigan too.
That's cool.
That is really cool.
Oh my
That's better
gosh.
than an HBO special or
Oh,
Netflix special.
Of course. How many people have their face on
Mad
Magazine?
Magazine?
That's incredible.
That's a good one.
It's better than the Rolling Stone,
So you,
which is nice.
which is nice. So you were going to, wanted to see if you wanted to do my show in New York, but you're busy banging out a lot of sets. Are you in a place now of a brand new set that you're going out on tour with? Or
Yeah.
where are you at?
Yeah, I shot a special of my last tour in June in Toronto, which I don't know if you've ever shot anything in Toronto. The audiences are extraordinary.
Oh,
They're so good.
really?
Yeah, I think you love it.
Yeah.
I played the Great Hall in Toronto,
Ooh,
which is
nice.
about 300 seats. Like I said, it was easy to fill in a day, and
Yeah.
so which I'm very grateful for. I'm not saying that's not,
No, it's
that's
great.
something that's a layup or anything like that. Anyhow,
That's great.
so then I wanted to. I didn't. When we came up in comedy, it was the era of comedians having their acts typed up and bound, and so I didn't want to do that with the book. I wanted to write a memoir rather than do that,
Right.
because also it's not
Yeah.
acceptable anymore. Back then it was like they'd take anything they could from a famous comedian.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, well, what's the difference between just doing jokes from the book? Then the people are gonna read it and say, oh, I just paid for this twice. So I took stories that didn't fit for the book and then expounded on the time period that I grew up in and some of the ideas from the book. So I don't want to say pretentiously I was inspired by the book. It's just from the same time period as the book, stories and things like that, so that I feel like the show will augment it, because there's also the idea that some people will read a chapter of their book, but it's like, I'm not David Sedaris. People aren't going to stand for that. They're expecting my stand-up.
They won't stand
Yeah,
for it. But man, what a great thing for Sedaris.
Oh my gosh, but he's
The
so
way
good at it. His shows. Have you ever been to
I've
one
never
of his?
been.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I
such
love
a
him.
hero.
I loved him before I
Uh-huh.
went, and afterwards I was like, oh my gosh, I love him even more. And he has it in his contract, because I looked into that they can't close down until he's met with everybody who wants to meet him. And so he signs, and he gives you some personal time. I mean, he's something else, and he's not young. I mean, the endurance is really
God.
really impressive. But it's a real show that he puts on, and his sister Amy came by and spoke a
yeah.
little bit. It was awesome.
But so
it was
he
at
comes-
the King's Theater in Brooklyn.
So he comes out and he's got his podium.
Yeah, he's got his
And his
podium,
book
and he does some things
he's
that he's
working
working on, and then he does the little bit from the book, and it's just awesome,
And
because
as
he's
he's-
just so lovable.
As he's going, he's editing that next book.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
so great.
But also he has something that is kind of, I forget what the outlet for it was. I think it might have been CBS Sunday Morning. But remember how you do the things where you say, I was thinking like that piece. So he did.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he does a version of not of your thing, but the equivalent in time and how long it takes to do it. And it's really
Oh, nice.
good. So he'll do ones that he's working on for CBS Sunday morning. So it's
very
just
cool.
really cool. And
I mean, it's
and
such a masterstroke, because
Yeah.
you do, if you've taken your book out, or if you do any readings or whatever, or any signings, and you quickly see, like when I would take them on Live from Here, I would when the book was coming out, I would read some essays, and it quickly gets you to edit it
yes.
in a way that is like, oh shit, this paragraph, they're not going to sit for this.
Right.
I got to get to that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? Well, if you're doing that during the writing of the book.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, I did try out a lot of the stories that wound up in the books. I do this twice monthly I put up one comedian, then I do an hour and a half, and so I tried out a lot of these ideas and found where funny lines were for the book.
Did you pull it out and read it, or you
no?
you
I just
snuck it in?
I snuck it in. I would just and it also helped me. I would listen to it and then say, oh, this is a good sentence for the book. The other thing was it was such a small crowd that there's no way people are going to be like, well, we heard that. If there's one person who said we already heard that,
Right.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
I don't feel like I want the entire audience to be like, oh, he's using us.
It's different. That's the kind of the curse. Is
Yeah,
you're not just
yeah,
purely a writer.
yeah,
You're a comedian first.
Right, but it's a great problem to have. But
Sure.
I also think it's very. I mean, I can't recommend this enough. Is to have somebody who's reading it, not the editor.
Yeah.
Along after you, because I would send every chapter to Mike Bonfiglio, and he would give me great notes. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great writer in his. I was about to say in his own right, which makes me sound like I'm saying I'm a great writer, and so is Mike. But what I'm saying is
You
that
are.
he's a director, but he's an excellent writer and
Yeah.
thinker, and he gave me great feedback and notes. And sometimes it's just to say, oh yeah, keep that. That's really funny if you're not sure about something.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you just want somebody who shares your sense of humor, and it gives you an idea of because sometimes you're choosing references or ideas and you're not entirely sure that it's not unique to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really helpful to have somebody on the outside saying, no, I get that.
Yeah. No, without having to question it. Like,
Yeah.
just if they say, okay, it's good. You just know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
yes.
a huge thing.
Huge.
I have my friend
a huge
Jano, and he's
relief.
that way.
And then you have something to go to the editor with if the editor says, I'm not sure about this. And you say, no,
We're
we get
good.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good on
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right, 2 more things.
Okay.
Do
We have time for 2 more things.
we?
We
We
should,
know
right?
where we're at. Okay, 2 more quick things because I
Yeah,
don't
of
want you to
course.
be late.
No, it's fine.
When you were talking about Owen Meany, going back and rereading that,
Yeah.
because that's that's so interesting because it means so much to a young person.
Yeah.
And to get the perspective, you put a quote in. No, you don't put a quote. You talk about. Oh, I think you thank something with Vonnegut. Vonnegut, we've always talked about Vonnegut.
Yeah.
Do you go back and reread Vonnegut ever?
Oh, yeah.
'cause that
I'm
was-
always reading a Vonnegut book, and then I go to the end, and then I start again from Player Piano. So I'm always reading something by
You are.
Vonnegut. Yeah.
Because I raced
Yeah.
through them like in college and right after.
Right.
And then I haven't really gone back. And
Oh, that's
I
interesting
hold
because
them
I've
as a
read all of
giant.
them at least twice, sometimes 4 or 5 times, like within the case of Breakfast of Champions and Slaughterhouse-Five, and my favorite is Sirens of Titan.
Oh, yeah.
So I've read Sirens of Titan I think 5 times.
Oh,
but,
wow.
And I get something every single time, and it's just it's so comforting that there's this guy who gets it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny? We're looking at Wacky Packs when you're young and then Vonnegut when you're older. But
Yeah.
you're really looking
Yeah.
to him for the same
But
thing.
did you see the documentary about Kurt? Okay, so the guy, I can't remember his Robert Whitey from he produces or directs Curb Your Enthusiasm. He did a documentary of Kurt Vonnegut, and they had become friends because as a student in high school, he had written Vonnegut a letter. Okay, so he interviews John Irving, who wrote Prayer for Owen Meany and took Vonnegut's class at the Iowa Writers Workshop, and he said something that I loved and I thought about so frequently because I read a book that collected Vonnegut's ideas on writing called Pity the Reader, which I highly recommend. It collected everything he ever said about writing in any place. So anyhow, John Irving said something, this was so great. He said, it's not easy to be easy to read. And the thing that a lot of people deride Vonnegut about is that it can't be that great because it was so easy to read. But
Stephen King, too.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh.
And
Stephen
wrong.
King. I mean, he also gets downgraded because he's so prolific. Like it must be so easy. Yeah.
He's just cranking this out. And then I dare anyone to read it and not be turning the pages as quickly as possible.
Oh my gosh, I read that Mr. Mercedes and I couldn't stop.
Insane.
Yeah.
The guy, and he it's so true. I mean, but that's the thing with all great art. I mean, with great comedy, if you watch somebody, it seems like, oh, anyone can do this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, hopefully.
The other question is too big.
Why?
Because we only have 7 minutes.
Let's
left.
try it.
All right. This book we have so many parallels in our life.
Yeah.
All this stuff that we're talking about of growing up at the same time. And
Yeah.
stuff
Starting
and all that
comedy
kind
at the
of thing.
same time. Yeah.
There is a break because I was raised Christian
Yeah.
and you were raised Jewish.
Right.
And it's pretty remarkable that at that early age, Judaism, like you start to become aware of what it is and why were people even insulting this and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What a divergent path. Not due to anything other than how where our stardust gathered up,
Right.
and whose house we landed
No,
in.
wow, that's a great
Isn't
way
it
to put it.
interesting?
Yeah.
Do you think we would be completely different people if it was switched?
Oh, it's just that Judaism was a thing that put me into certain boxes, and that I spent 3 days a week for 3 hours each time in a Hebrew school with a bunch of people who were considered misfits and that I didn't fit in with because I wasn't in. And this is, I don't know if you remember this from growing up, but if you didn't like the same type of music as somebody, they had no use for you. So I and also I had this thing where if something was super popular with people I didn't really care for, I resisted it. So I didn't get into Rush until I was in my 30s because the kids who were into Rush when I was growing up were so shitty to me.
Right.
That I was like this, and then I find out this band was a band from Misfits, and these fucking Misfits had pushed me out of their clan. I could have enjoyed my youth. Some, if I had been able to embrace Rush. So but I think that I was always drawn to like-minded thinkers. So one of my best friends growing up was a Jewish kid, but another one was somebody who was raised Catholic by a mother who taught religious education at the Catholic Church in our community, and he's the one who gave me a prayer for Owen Meany, and I don't know that we were the Tom and Gary of that time period, in that we were two guys who played on a lacrosse team and were bonding over reading books, and amidst a group of people who were Philistines, and I mean that in the sense of the word, in that they resisted culture and were ignorant of it, but we were able to. There's so much. What I forget about sports is there's so much downtime during practice where you're just standing around and you're talking, and so we were discussing things that compared to these other kids they were elevated, but for us now it's like, yeah, you should be reading books, right? But he had this mother who was educated and shared books with him, and I had this loneliness component which I filled a lot with books, and so we connected. So I think the biggest separation between you and I was just geography, and we would have found each other, or somebody like each other no matter what, because these types of things we're drawn to like-minded thinkers, I think.
Very interesting. Well, congratulations. The book
thanks,
is so
man.
great.
I mean, your praise means so much to me. I mean that honestly and obviously, but I just this made my day. Thank
this
you.
was so great that it worked out.
Yeah.
All right, Joey, we got it. There you have it, kids. That was the great Gary Gulman. What? We could have gone for 3 hours for sure. In the middle of it, I was like, we're going to go Rogan distance on this one. And then he had to go do an interview. It's all right. We'll get him back in. Great. Go get his book. Again, Misfit, awkward, growing up awkward in the 80s. I can't wait to read the rest of it. Go to tompapa.com. Look up all of the dates. I'm everywhere. We have a huge one, my friends, at NJ Pack in New Jersey. We've got Toronto coming up. We've got shows in Charleston and Durham. We're going all over the place. And we're bringing books along, so there'll be signings at all of these events. You guys are the best. See you next time.